Welcome to the first ever episode of TV Feuds. I'm your host, Adam Olinger. This is an offshoot of movie feuds and game feuds, hopefully something I can do a bit more of down the road. Today though, let's get started with The Walking Dead versus Game of Thrones. With casts like these, where does one even begin? I'm going to start with The Walking Dead because I can remember a few more of the names and actually pronounce some of them correctly. The frontman of the show is Rick Grimes, played by Andrew Lincoln. Many have said the show could not go on or would not be the same without its fearless leader. If Fear the Walking Dead has shown me anything, it's that an unlikable cast can stop a show dead in its tracks. No pun intended. Grimes is an everyman type police officer who cares more about protecting his people than anything else. His son Carl, played by Chandler Riggs, has been with him since day one as well. We've seen a good amount of growth from these two over the years through the many tough choices they've had to make. Norman Reedus plays tough as nails, crossbow-wielding badass Darrel Dixon. He's definitely a fan favorite, but the surprise hit of the show has to be Carol, played by Melissa McBride. Talk about doing a complete 180. This woman started out as a weak, frail individual. Now in these later seasons, she's a crafty, almost fearless survivor. I could spend all day talking about the cast, but for the sake of the runtime and the laziness of the script, I'm just going to quickly rattle off some of the highlights. There's Michonne and her lovable sword. Glenn and his wife, who continues to get hotter every season, Maggie. Beth, Herschel, Sean, Andrea, Eugene, Abraham, T-Dog, Morgan, and the countless more that have come and gone across the so far 6-year run. Now, with all good characters, there's bound to be one or two that get under your skin or just plain piss you off. I have a nice little list myself, and I think that's where the big distinction comes into play between these two shows. There are not many people I can't stand in Game of Thrones. Yes, there are plenty of terrible individuals. I'd say over 80% of them are downright shitty people, but none of them bother the hell out of me like Father Gabriel. He's the worst. There's also the governor, who is pretty stupid as well. His whole plot and everything just made no sense. Game of Thrones has the biggest cast in television history. That's an Adam fun fact, meaning I just made it up on the spot and there's no truth or merit to what I just said. I wouldn't be surprised if it was true though. Peter Dinklage as the little engine that could, Tyrion Lannister, has my vote for the Iron Throne sitter. The guy is a master of words, a lyrical poet. He's what Kanye West pretends to be. Unfortunately, Tyrion was born in just a garbage family. I mean, the Lannisters pretty much suck all around. Brother Jaime being one of the small exceptions, although Jaime is banging Cersei, so his morals are all over the goddamn place. Lena Headey steals every scene she's in with her calm yet piercing demeanor. Littlefinger was on a stroll last night, thought he spotted a White Walker. Turns out it was just Cersei. That bitch is ice cold. Speaking of cold, let's segue into the Starks, the good guys of the series. If I've learned anything from Game of Thrones, it's that the good guys don't last long in this world. I'm a big fan of the whole Stark crew. There's Bastard Stark, Kids React Stark, Jean Grey Stark, Dances with Starks, and all the dead ones too. On the other side of the tracks, we have the mother of dragons, Daenerys Targaryen. I'm all for girl power and equal rights, but I'm not going to lie to you. A large part of me died when she said she'd no longer appear nude in the show. That one stung. I mean, props for having nudity in the show at all. That's something it has over Walking Dead. Anyway, she and Tyrion make the show for me. She commands an army, dragons, and my heart. There are far too many people for me to remember in this thing. I went on IMDb earlier today, scrolled through the list, had a small stroke. There's a guy that is basically a Pokemon named Hodor, can only say his own name. There's a MILF witch, Lady Marjorie, who I call Lady Smirksy, because she's smoking hot but seriously needs to add another look to her portfolio. One of my favorite villains of the many is Joffrey because he's such a little whiny twat, but mainly his name is Joffrey, not Jeffrey, fucking Joffrey. You don't just hand names like that out all willy-nilly. You have an idea in your mind that if I name this kid Joffrey, he's gonna be raised as a douchebag. There's no other way around it. If your name is Joffrey and you're watching this, you probably have someone in your basement right now, against their will. Ramsay Bolton is another character that I absolutely love to hate. He's what I imagine the resulting offspring would be from the devil hate-fucking himself. I've only scratched the surface on this show, along with Walking Dead, but we have 2 rounds to go, and frankly, I'm sick of typing. Was I supposed to read that? The Walking Dead is based off a popular graphic novel. Or is it a comic? Is there a difference? I honestly don't know, and Google's way over there. It's just too far for me to get to. I've been told by the internet that the story started out following the comics but then went on its own path and got stupid. It then course corrected when the 80th set of writers were brought on. Here's the quick version of the plot. Rick Grimes wakes up in a hospital building that's abandoned. doesn't know what the hell happened. He's learned of a virus that turns a large portion of the population into zombies, or as they refer to them, walkers. Rick meets a ragtag group of survivors, and together they do whatever it takes to stay alive. The end goal of this whole thing is a bit of a wash now. At first it was to figure out a cure, but that well dried up long ago. So I'm not really sure what they're doing anymore, just kind of waffling, just trying to make it through the night. Our protagonists have certainly grown individually, and I guess that's probably as far as things will go, considering there's no end in sight for this series. Game of Thrones is a far more complex beast, with people out for themselves, or out for their families, or out for other people's families, or for the farmer down the street that's banging your girlfriend. Where Walking Dead usually has themes each season and plot arcs, Game of Thrones doesn't seem too concerned with the typical format. Instead, it just carries on at its own pace. The experts of the internet have made it quite clear that the show is very faithful to the books early on, but has since gone its own way. Fleetwood Mac style. You can go your own way, is the reference. Author/creator George R.R. Martin has approved of this since the show is now further along than his own goddamn book series. A bunch of different families are all fighting for power over the land. In order to achieve this, they will need to play an intricate game full of lies, betrayals, murder, and vengeance. But playing your cards right is only half the battle. Staying alive afterwards, that's the real challenge. I'm not sure there has been an end season announced at this point, but the showrunners seem adamant about ending on the highest note possible. Unlike The Walking Dead, that seems a bit more content just letting the show run until all the actors die of old age. The seasons overall have been far more consistent in terms of quality. The Sand Snakes were dumb as fuck, but I'm willing to forgive that little bump in the road since there was a glorified topless sequence to follow. It really doesn't take much to win me over. This is a tough round since both these shows are quite the spectacle. Walking Dead has some of the best makeup effects around. Game of Thrones, on the other hand, has done amazing things with CGI. It's a highly fantastical show that has very practical effects, and I applaud it for that. That seems like a fair amount of applause. The work AMC has done with The Walking Dead is nothing short of spectacular. The decapitations, the gallons and gallons of blood spilled, the dark and gritty locales, the gut-wrenching deaths, it all looks very real. The music is equally as impressive, but I think Game of Thrones is a tad ahead of The Walking Dead in this department. That 25-minute opening number, yes, I'm being dramatic, is worth listening to every time. Dead has a much more subdued score since an upbeat, happy time adventure theme would feel out of place. Rick Grimes trudging through the woods, blowing a walker's head off, yelling, "Coral!" That just wouldn't work with like a Rugrats theme. Would it? No, that doesn't work. I love the hell out of both these shows. Have there been some dud episodes? Yes. Will The Walking Dead cast members continue to have 15-minute conversations while walkers are trying to break in and eat their faces off? Of course! Those silly moments can be looked past when you take in the amazing events each season brings to the table. GOT has had some extremely satisfying seasons, with multiple moments of shock taking over. Unless, of course, you didn't watch the show in real time right when it aired and you're anywhere by a smartphone or computer. Then you might as well not even bother watching, because every asshole on the planet feels it's his sole responsibility to ruin the fucking Red Wedding! I get it, James, it happened 3 years ago in the book, but I don't read! I have had a really hard time deciding between these two shows, but I think I'm gonna fall on what will most likely be the minority side of things and go with The Walking Dead. Mainly because while it is fun to see the good guys lose on occasion, it can sure be a buzzkill when it happens every single episode. Typically in the most sadistic, rapey way possible. Now I want to hear from you. Leave a comment, vote below, because that's really what matters. Who cares what I think? I'm an idiot. And remember, this is more than just reviews, this is TV Feuds. And can we just agree at least, no matter who wins, Breaking Bad is the superior show? And don't you even think about bringing up The fucking Wire!